Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order, that being the regular council meeting of Warwick Township Council, October 20th, 2025, starting time at 3:30. Does anybody have a disclosure of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest at this time? Seeing none. I'd also like to welcome everybody who's joining us through our YouTube page today. I'm now going to do the acknowledgement of ancestral lands. We acknowledge that the Township of Warwick is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, as well as the many Indigenous nations in Ontario whose footsteps have marked them for centuries. We also wish to acknowledge that we are situated on Treaty 29 and Treaty 25 territories signed by Chippewa chiefs, and we offer our respect and gratitude for these lands. We go to number 5 on the agenda, Council, if I could. And that's minutes from the September 29th, 2025 meeting. Anybody have any questions on those minutes? If there's no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve. Thank you, Councillor Morris. Seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And there was no business arising from those minutes, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. And number 7 is scheduled meetings and events. This is an FYI. 7A. Did anybody have any questions on 7A at all? What about 7B, Council? Seeing no questions. Very good. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, you can always ask the clerk. Let's go to number 8 if we can. Councilors' commitments and items. First off, commitment wise, does anybody have anything they wish to add to the commitment list, Council?
March 29th through April 20th.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Westgate. Does anybody else have anything they wish to add? No, seeing none. Okay. And as always, if you have anything you want to update that particular calendar on, you can always let the clerk know. Okay, let's go to councillors' items, verbal reports. I'm going to start with the Deputy Mayor today. Deputy Mayor Kallenberg, do you have anything for today?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Manning.
Nothing today. Thanks.
Councillor Westgate.
And I have nothing today.
Councillor Morris.
I also have nothing today.
Very good. Well, let's just make it a clean slate then. I have nothing to report today as well. Okay, so our next order of business is delegations and timed events, and we are ahead of ourselves. So what we're going to do is move down to number 11 on the agenda if we can, Council, and that's accounts. So we have 3 particular pieces of business today. Does anybody have any question on 11A, the GL report? Seeing no questions on the GL. Okay. We also have the added piece of business today, the Q3 variances. Trevor, is there anything you want to highlight on the Q3 variances before I ask Council?
There's a couple of things. Public Works, we knew this at the end of Q1, but their winter maintenance budget is blown for the year because we had a very hard and late spring. We're going to be over the end of the year. There's nothing to do. We're looking to find ways that we're going to balance it out with other cost savings throughout. Parks and Rec are pretty much online where they need to be. And we're going to come in under on the human resource side of it in terms of payroll and consultants throughout the year. It'll true up towards the final Q4, but that's the pressure points we have right now.
Thank you, Trevor. Did anybody else on council have any question on the Q3? Anybody at all? All right. Thank you very much. How about the accounts payable, Council? Any questions on the accounts payable today? No? Okay. Council, I would entertain a motion that Warwick Township Council approves the GL report, Q3 variances, and the accounts payable as presented. If anybody wishes to. Deputy Mayor Kallenberg, seconded by Councillor Manning. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Let's go to number 12, we could, Council, that being the consent agenda. Did anybody have anything on the non-action part of the consent agenda, being 12A? Okay, seeing nothing on 12A. Let's look at 12B, minutes from the special council meeting of October 16, 2025. Anybody have any questions on that? Seeing none. Okay. 12C, development charges update. Trevor, do you want to just touch on that one for a second, please?
There's a lot of changes coming down the pipe with Bill 23. However, the rate of change is quicker than the actual documentation that's coming out because I don't think it's finalized. It's still being worked through the process, and these are the highlights where we think things are going to go. The big one is going to be the deferred payment schedule. That is fine. We've also had conversations at AMO whereby other ministries are looking at other options. They were forthright in telling us that. That hasn't been granulated into anything here, but it's something to keep a hand on. We will update this as we go, as any changes come down with the Planning Act. It is something that's going to be a living document until it's final. And even when it's final, it's probably going to change thereafter. But this is the information we could find for the time being.
All right, thank you, Trevor. We appreciate that. Any questions on what Trevor just said? When it comes to the development charges? A lot of it is being driven by the province, and a lot of the whole rationale around it is being also driven by the province as well. Let's go to 12D, Economic Development and Communications Quarterly Update. Before I ask council if they have any questions, I'm going to ask Stephanie just if she'd like to pinpoint a couple of the things in the report. Stephanie.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Case. I'm excited that we completed the Win This Space contest, as you guys voted in favor of. We do have a new business coming to town, Yaya's Kitchen, which will offer breakfast and lunch for residents. So residents can stay tuned to announcements on their opening. Also, we had finalized our CIP, which you will hopefully vote to adopt later on today. And we're excited to be able to share some of the new changes that the committee implemented with our business owners in the coming months. I applied for the Rural Ontario Development Grant, and we're hoping to develop a new economic development strategic plan. So we hope to hear back from the province in the early new year about that. And additionally, we're almost finished filming our promo video series on the township. So we're excited to launch those videos in the next couple of months with 48 cuts. So that's about it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Did anybody have any questions on Stephanie's report? There are an awful lot of real good things happening in the community right now, and Stephanie's been doing a really good job working with our video photographer as well as others, and these videos are going over very well in the community. The Evan Van Gorp celebration video, I don't know how many hits it had, but it was in the thousands. So it's really working quite well, and thank you, Stephanie. We appreciate the work you're doing on the file. So no other questions? All right. Let's move down to E if we could. And E is the first school road culvert replacement. This is something that's already been done. Kyle, did you want to touch on this a little bit?
Thank you. Yes, this culvert, we proceeded with the award to JLH Excavating in advance of council to get it ordered and installed before the end of the year. So we're currently tracking to a mid-November replacement date. They ordered the material 2 weeks ago. Once it's in their yard, they'll dig up and replace the culvert. This was identified in the road tour last year as one of the ones that is beneath the 3-meter threshold that doesn't get assessed every other year under OSIM. And it was Ray had identified it as one needing replacement. So we're going to put a steel culvert in place of the concrete to save costs, and it's still adequate for all flows in that area.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Does anybody have any questions of Kyle on the culvert replacement? It's good to get it done. Thank you. Okay, I would entertain a motion to receive and file A to E if council saw fit. Councillor Manning is making that motion, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we still have 5 minutes before our timed events. Let's go to 13 if we could, council. Let's go to 13A. We have action correspondence first on the agenda. And as always, what I'll do, council, is I will call out the action correspondence, and if you wish to act on it, please let me know. So the first piece of correspondence is 10-38, the Mike Harvey Foundation invitation to annual general meeting. Well, everything sometimes is timely, and this is very timely because the meeting is tonight. And I will be going, as I always do. Of course, anybody else from council that would like to go, that would be terrific. So that piece of information, I guess, has been dealt with, and I will be there tonight, and everybody else is welcome to come too. So 10-39 is the next piece of correspondence, and that's the Cat Chance request for donation. So these are the folks that look after the stray cats in town, and they're looking for some financial support. Yes, Councillor Morris?
Do we have this in the budget, Trevor?
This is additional on top of what we have in the budget. We gave them $3,000 as their annual grant. They've now got another 10 cats because they found a cluster that they weren't planning on, so they've already spent their allocation. This is on top.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this? Yes, Councillor Manning.
Do they have a number amount they're requesting? I mean, I see this as a benefit for our community because in the long run, we get too many cats going around. It's gonna cost us even more money, right? And then nip it at the source.
They did not include a number. I thought I had read a number, but I went back through all the information I had on. I have not seen anything yet. I can go back and clarify and or council can give me a number to go with if they're so inclined.
Okay. So do we have a little homework to do on this particular one then, to maybe get an idea of what they're looking for? Is that the way we want to? Yes, Councillor Manning?
Is there a time sensitivity to this? I mean, like if we're gonna have to wait a month and then by then that cluster's gone or whatever, or already breeding, I mean, it could be an issue, right? So I just wondering, like, do we know how many, when we gave them 3,000, how many does that cover? And we can kind of get a rough idea of how many we can cover with, if they're looking at about 10, 15 of them now, right?
I can't answer that, but I can have you an answer in short order. I would imagine they deal with a substantial more higher number than 10 per year, so.
Okay. So, yes, please, Councillor.
Sorry, I'm not quite done with this one yet. I think maybe we should allocate a little bit of money for them just to take care of that cluster they have. And then go from there. Maybe they can come back with another number to at least get them started on this. Because again, this is a time sensitive thing. We know with cats how they can be, so.
So was this the first year, Trevor, that we actually gave them a grant for this? Or was this something that's occurred in the past as well? Just trying to figure out what we could give them, or we maybe could give them some money up front. And then obviously it can be dealt with at the next budget process, can come off the 3,000, or maybe it has to be added to it. That's my question.
I believe this is the third year we've worked with them and it's been $3,000 since we've commenced with them. That's the other option. We can forward them, let's say $1,000 this year to deal with a cluster. And that should reduce their needs for next year if based on their email and their correspondence, because it's going to take down the number of cats that aren't spayed or neutered in the wild area. And we can reevaluate it at that period of time during budget deliberations.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, and then even if they come back with needing more after that, at least we'll have numbers afterwards, but I think we deal with this as soon as possible.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions on this particular one? So I guess I'm looking to council. I mean, it was suggested. Councillor Morris, I'm sorry.
If we do advance the money now, can we make it in the motion that it comes off of next year's?
You could advance them the money and then you could take it off next year. That's not a problem. It's easy enough to do. I guess we really need to hear from them. They talk about being a successful program and, you know, the need is not quite as much as it was before, but they found this last little cluster that they want to deal with. So yes, you have every right to do that if you wish.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering if we put in $1,000 out there now, next year it'd be 2,000. If they come back and say, boy, that's not enough, we can always rebudget then at that time for more money without messing things up. So I make a motion, we put $1,000 to them now off of next year's budget.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder to that? Councillor Manning is seconding that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And then the last piece is 10-40 Watford Legion. And it's the request for their annual poppy bucket drive. So it's their poppy drive that they do every year. This is something that they request every year. How does council wish to deal with this request?
I'll make a motion, we approve the request.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I don't know if we need a motion. It looks like we dealt with every one of them, so we don't need a motion to receive and file, I don't think. So we've dealt with everyone, Madam Clerk. We good? Perfect. Okay. Let's go to 13B if we can. And it's the 2026 annual meeting calendar. And I was told by Trevor probably a half an hour ago that staff has saw a few things in there they'd like to take a second look at. So we probably need to not deal with this today. So probably we need a motion to table to our next meeting based on staff's request. The tabling motion made by Councillor Manning, seconded by Councillor Morris. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And then we'll go to C. And C is the internet voting RFP. And there's a recommendation that Council of the Township of Warwick accepts the proposal submitted by Simply Voting Inc. in the amount of $20,551.73, including HST, for the services of internet voting for the 2026 municipal election, which is 1 year away. Do you have any questions? If no questions, I'd ask, yes, Councilor Morris.
Is this the same company we used before?
We had a little technical difficulty. It's not just the big companies like Amazon that are losing their service. We are here too in the Township of Warwick. So we were dealing, just so everybody knows, we were dealing with 13C on our agenda, and it was the internet voting RFP. And the question was asked by Councilor Morris about the company and how they measured up. And the former company that did it last time did not include a price. And the clerk has just mentioned that the due diligence was done by numerous municipalities as well as the IT department of the city of Sarnia. And this company scored well. So how does council wish to deal with this particular piece of business? The recommendation is to go ahead with it at $20,551.73.
I'll move to accept it.
Deputy Mayor is moving that. Seconded by
second it.
Councilor Morris. All in favor? That's carried. Perfect. And the last part of that recommendation is that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary agreements required, and we're okay with that as well. So that's good. Okay, what I'm going to do is we're a little off time here. I'm going to blame the internet. And we're going to go back to our delegations if we can, council, and we'll come back to 13D later on. So we are going to go back to delegations and timed events. And we'll start our first delegation today is a zoning amendment for Vanden Allen. And I'm going to go through the process right now, council. So it's a zoning procedure, the application number Z0425 Vanden Island. And it's 6433 Egremont Road. And I'm going to announce the following. The next item of council's agenda is the holding of the public meeting with respect to an application and council's consideration of a bylaw to amend Warwick zoning bylaw 121 of 2012 on lands described as concession 1 SCR E PT Lot 4E half Lot 4, known municipally as 6433 Egremont Road in the township of Warwick. The purpose of the amendment is to permit a proposed surplus farm dwelling severance. I'm now going to ask the clerk the following: the method of giving public notice, the meeting, and the date the notice was given. Madam Clerk, please.
Notices were sent by regular mail and posted on the property on September 24th, 2025, but due to the Canada Post strike the next day, we also hand delivered them on September 29th.
Thank you, clerk. I'm now going to state the following. Any person requiring further notice of the passing of the bylaw should give their name and full mailing address to the clerk before leaving the meeting. Any persons present who wish to make oral or written submissions should provide the clerk with their name and full mailing address. Also, all persons wishing to address the bylaw should ask their questions through myself, the chair. I'm now going to proceed. The clerk will now read any written submissions. Clerk, did we have any written submission?
Any submissions that were received are included on the planner's report.
Thank you very much. The planner will now give his report. Johan, please.
Through your worship, good afternoon, respected council members, applicants, and the viewing public. As mentioned, the application before us is to rezone the lands to permit a future surplus farm dwelling severance. Next slide, please. So the property is located at 6433 Egremont Road. The lot is currently zoned agricultural 1, so A1. There is 2 natural heritage zoning overlays, so that's the EPH, so hazard lands around the drain and near the drain, and the EPWD, which is environmentally protected woodlot towards the rear of the property. The surrounding lands has agricultural operations, single detached residences, and livestock facilities. Next slide, please. So this is a photo of the property. There is a single detached residence that you see in red. Behind the car and behind the trees behind that is an old barn, which is proposed to be removed as part of this application. Moving on. So this is the proposed rezoning. So what's being proposed is the severed rural residential lot will remain in one. The retained lot will have a NDA designation. So that's basically an agricultural lot with a no dwelling designation. So no future dwellings can go on that lot. So for our analysis, both the lots, the severed and the retained, meet the minimum area requirements. So the retained requires 38 hectares as per the county official plan and the Warwick official plan, and what's being proposed is well in excess of it. It also meets a minimum distance separation requirements as well. There's nearby livestock facilities. There's a few horses across the road, and there's a livestock facility further west. This application meets NDS. Also regarding the barn that we mentioned, it's proposed to be removed. As part of the subsequent severance application, we'll require that as a consent as a condition of severance. Also, regarding the proposed severed lots area, so it's around 2 acres. Our official plan requires justification over 1 acre. And in this case, we have 2 acres that is required for septic on clay soil, so the justification is there as it is. So from a policy perspective, there's no concerns. Next slide, please. This is the proposed zoning schedule. Next slide, please. So staff's recommendation is that council approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. With that, I end my presentation and open the floor to any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Johan. Anybody have any questions at this time? No? Part of the process is that we will hear those in favor of the bylaw first and then hear from those opposed. Does anybody wish to speak to it? I see none. Members of council may provide any questions or comments about the application. Does anybody on council have any comments or questions about the application? Deputy Mayor.
I'm assuming the current septic system's within that retained lot.
Through your worship, yes, it is.
Very good. Anybody else? Any questions for Johan? Seeing none. Okay, so I'm going to state the following. The public meeting is now concluded. Council may consider the passing of the zoning bylaw amendment at this meeting or at a future meeting. A copy of council's decision will be mailed to those who have requested notification. Under section 3(4)(19) of the Planning Act, only certain individuals and organizations are eligible to appeal council's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. These include the applicant, a public body, a specific person as identified in the act, or a person or public body who made oral submissions at the public meeting or written submissions, but to council before the bylaw was passed. A notice of appeal must be filed with the clerk of the Township of Warwick no later than 20 days after the date of which council's decision is given. The notice of appeal must set out the reasons of the appeal and be accompanied by a fee payable to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Thank you very much for everybody for coming. That concludes the meeting. Okay, we're going to go back to our agenda here, folks, if we could. I'm just trying to remember where we left off. We talked about the voting of the RFP. We got that. So that was the last piece. And now we're back to the decision of the CIP, I believe. Oh, pardon me. We do have another person today. Thank you. So we do have our accountants with us today too, folks. And I guess I didn't take it on. They're quietly waiting in the waiting room. So Madam Clerk, are they ready to go? Okay. Okay, so the next piece of business for us today is on the agenda under delegations, and it's 10B. Joining us on Zoom is Giovanni Spadafora. I always try to make sure I get the name right, Giovanni. And he is with M&P, and they're going to do their annual financial report to council. Welcome. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And am I okay to share my screen? I figure if I could do that to broadcast, send that request.
You should be good to share your screen now.
Okay. There we go. All right, does it look like it's broadcasting there? Okay, so I'll get started here. First up is the audit findings report. A lot of this is now going to be fully kind of incorporated with M&P's methodology, they call it. So essentially their correspondence and obviously the statements and all of that detail that we'll go through here. Go through the statements themselves. And of course, if there's any questions at the end, and then I always kind of suggest if there's any further follow-up after this. There is a couple of items to zero in on that I will when I get there, and then some new notes and standards that have been implemented in for 2024's year end. So with that, the first couple pages of the audit findings report, we do kind of call specifically to, as part of the audit service plan that was received and the engagement letter that was signed off on, we talk about the status itself. We are going to get a representation letter signed off by management discussing, everything that was done and signing off on the journal entries and any summary of unadjusted differences that we picked up. But what we want to show council here is from our audit service plan, our materiality, the amount there about 719 with no changes. If we've identified any suspected fraud, and even though the audit cannot be fully relied upon to detect this, no instances did come up that we identified. No non-compliance with any laws or regulations. No significant matters that arose during the course of the audit in connection with related parties of the township, other than what we'll discuss. And then the views of significant accounting practices, what management is using for any estimates and significant accounting policies were evaluated as part of the audit work. It does show here how we're uniquely positioned to provide open and objective feedback regarding the accounting practices. And I've noted that the following items during the course of the audit we want to bring to your attention. And essentially what that is those significant risk areas below that we'll talk about. And it's prevalent with essentially all audits with the management override controls, and what we do look out for any potential biases. That was implemented with that CAS 315 that came out a couple of years ago, essentially making those unrebuttable as part of an audit. And if you are, what are you doing as part of the audit to address those risks? Disclosures are all appropriate. No significant deficiencies in internal controls that we need to make council aware of, and no significant matters discussed or subject to correspondence with management that are in our judgment, needed to be brought to your attention. So those two significant risk areas, management override of controls, what we do, clearly outlined there that we test the appropriateness of the journal entries recorded in the general ledger, both manual and, if necessary, those ones that are more automatic, day to day, week to week. And we review any accounting estimates for biases and evaluate whether those circumstances producing the bias is applicable. And then the rationale behind entries. So we use kind of a manual approach, but also an electronic approach that does scan through entries, basically all the journal entries, journal entry items, to determine if there's anything that needs to be followed up, both in groupings of accounts and any transactions themselves if they do come up. Revenue recognition is a presumed risk of fraud as well, but what we do is test the details on sample basis to ensure revenues have been, that they've occurred and have been recorded accurately. And then all the journal entry testing as well that we do. We inquire with management to suspect if there's any suspected or actual fraud. And of course, no issues were identified as a result of that our testing performed. But again, there are certain areas that are more susceptible, like user charges. We do a lot of substantive work around that to ensure that we get the reasonable audit evidence. Our asset retirement obligations, something that we've inquired with management, and there's going to be further discussion with council, but addressing the potential risk or liability of any asset retirement obligations at this point, based on management's best estimate, we do not have any that we've set up. And then our independence, we can confirm that myself, of course, anyone working on the audit was independent of the municipality. And those management representations have been signed off. And the summary of unadjusted differences, we do bring that table here now. What we found were a couple of items here from the financial position that would affect the annual surplus that were adjusted on our end in order to balance off the accounts. And then rounding out the audit findings, what we do with MMP, part of their approach is what's that clear communication provided to those charged with governance, so council. So the audit service plan starting off the job, the inquiry in the course of the audit if necessary, and at this point on any audit findings and finalization that we're discussing with you. And we put this out here with our references to the kind of handbook sections. If council or anyone would feel that there was any miscommunication or lack of communication, well, we can definitely follow up. And just kind of 2 pages on that. So now we'll get into the final draft statements. We'll scroll through some of these first few pieces. The management report, no changes there. One item on the actual audit report in these drafts is the emphasis of matter relating to a correction for the 2023 statements that are necessary because of comparative years. The changes that were made, we will discuss those in note 3. Everything else as part of the audit and the audit report and the opinion on the report, similar to previous years, no issues there. And the rest of it rounds out what we do as part of the audit on the second page here. So we'll start with the statement of financial position. And this is looking at the essentially balance sheet of the organization with the financial assets, liabilities, and any non-financial assets. So you can see with comparative years, your cash position, your investments, essentially both in equities and bonds, taxes receivable, accounts receivable, and other receivables. A couple of notes there that we'll get to in a few moments. And then the investment position in Blue Water Power. So all of that, 13,680 last year, 13,680,000 last year to 17. The other receivables being the big jump, as well as investments themselves and cash. So big increase in the total financial asset side. On the liabilities, we do have our accounts payable and accrued liabilities, any deferred revenues that would come from either community building fund or the OCIF that would be essentially obligatory reserves. The municipal debt itself brought down as expected. And then the asset retirement obligation identified as part of the laws. So the related party there that we've identified. And then total liabilities, 12 million, up from 11.3 last year. So net financial assets, 2.3 to just over 5 million. And then our tangible capital asset piece. So that's everything identified as part of the tangible capital assets we've been recording for years now. Essentially any roads, equipment, underground, all of that is in there. Note 14 has a bit of a breakdown we'll look at. But overall, an accumulated surplus that aggregates to 72,525, up from 68,963. Note 17 we'll look at in a few minutes, which will show how that is made up of the equities and the reserves. And then there is two pieces to the 72 based on the statements that the municipality does have with some accumulated remeasurement gains that we do have. So 71,955 is the accumulated surplus before those remeasurement gains. And then 569 does get added to that, getting us to the 72,525. So then the actual statement of operations, we have our revenues by essentially source or type of revenues, and then our expenses by departments. And you can see here with comparison with some budget analysis and actual, how everything kind of came together. So our net taxation and our user charges, both in water, sewer, and overall user charges, transfer payments, and then effectively what makes its way in other, and then the Blue Water Power Corporation on its own. So 14,354 up from 12,950. And then our expenses themselves, again, general, protection, transportation, environmental, health, rec, and planning and development. And you can see comparative budgeted and prior year. So that 11,139 against the revenue gives us a surplus position based on PSAB of 3.2. And then in this, we do account for our laws adjustment, our change in flow percentage. So that brings it down a little bit. So our annual surplus of 3.1, just over 3.1 million. And then we have our restatement position. So our correction we'll look at in note 3, but effectively last year's accumulated surplus position overall was adjusted for. We take in the new accumulated and then our overall position with the change in the remeasurement gains, again, getting us to that 72,525, 580 you saw in the previous statement. And then next is the consolidated change in net financial assets. So effectively what, equity positions you have outside of any, so the annual surplus, but then you have the tangible capital asset pieces. So any amortization on those assets, any acquisition of assets, sale of tangible capital assets, and gain and losses on disposals, all recorded here against the annual surplus to show the increase in net financial assets. So you can see comparatively from last year to this year, again, our restatement position. So we get to 2.689. With that, we are also correcting the with the restatement position. You can see from prior year and current year, our net financial assets beginning of 2.360 and then ending out just over the 5,050,000 we saw in the statement of financial position. With the remeasurement gains, this is a special statement when you do have investments as a municipality that would have an unrealized position to them. This will be the third year I think that we've been seeing this statement, but it's just kind of put into the MMP format, so it's a little more directed where it's just kind of showing the changes in the unrealized gains or losses, and then amounts reclassified to statement of operations for the portfolio investments designated for fair value. So we do have a fair value position on that. So overall, we start with last year's ending position, show continuity for the year with those changes that are in aggregate, and then an overall amount for the remeasurement gain at the end of the year. So effectively, what is outstanding in the statement says potential gains that just effectively are not realized, and the change in that is always added to the statement of financial position for the total accumulated surplus. The last one here for kind of the number statements, we have our statement of cash flows. So taking our annual surplus like prior year, and then showing what the non-cash charges to operations would be, and then the non-cash assets and liabilities, so changes in receivables and payables. So you can see a number of items are going on here, but just essentially the change on the financial position statement for deferred receivables, payables, and anything capital related would effectively be included here. And then from there, what are our acquisitions and our proceeds on disposals for capital assets, how that affected the cash position, and then investing. So what changed in the investing and the change in the law's ownership percentage, and any changes overall in investments, and debt principal payments. So that's where we get to a net increase that then with the prior year cash and cash equivalents at the beginning of the year gets us to the $6,058,000 we had on the financial position statement. So now I'll go through the notes, and I won't dwell too much on everything here, but what we did want to call on is some of the new notes, one of them being the revenue recognition. So with that, is at the bottom here, we do obviously have had revenue recognition, but what we do want to show is that based on adopting a new standard of recognition measurement under PS 3400. So we did have to do a change in accounting policy for that revenue recognition position. And of course, if anything were to have applied, we would have included that in this presentation. Note 3 is the discussion around that correction for the restatement that we had to do. And of course, it is very involved because there are a few elements, but at the end of the day, what our table here on note 3 is showing is that we've now fully incorporated a consolidation with the Warwick Economic Development Board. And so the remaining receivable position and the full tangible capital asset position, and then the accumulated surplus, in order to have a comparative for 2023 and then 2024, we do have a restatement position here. But overall, it's just kind of showing as part of the standards and the process that we needed to go through, all the changes overall, so that we had a fully consolidated 2023 and now 2024 for the Economic Development Corporation. The operations of the school board is next, and showing just that detail. The investments breakdown by cost and market, the receivables being taxes receivable, and then the other receivable. There was that position of a loan receivable with that $1 million with the decision that was made there for some with the Economic Development Board and some kind of future projects that are on the go. And then the drains receivable, the overall long-term receivable that's created for construction and drain maintenance. Investment in Blue Water Power has a couple pages, but effectively the percentage of equity ownership is what is on the books there, and you can see the continuity detail of what changed there overall with the Blue Water Power Corporation, what restatements that they may have had, and then our proportionate consolidated amount through an equity method. And then the municipal corporation themselves, so the revitalization, land development, and then the Economic Development Corporation with now the adjusted for totals for our assets, our property, plant, and equipment, retained earnings now. So it changed based on income in the year because of the operations, and overall what would change our retained earning position overall based on the restated amount. Bank indebtedness, just calling to the fact that there is a line of credit deferred revenue, the OCIF is kind of showing what was received, used, and ending in the year. The repayment of debt, how that dropped off in the year, and kind of just showing maturities and rates based on that detail. And kind of the next one here was no tangible capital assets. So by general and infrastructure, this is a nice summary showing the positions effectively that would be net book value positions, and then what's work in progress for the year. And you can see those amounts that make up the 67 million. And the last one I want to settle on is note 17 and showing the accumulated surplus overall. So based on our surplus positions, we've separated out the Economic Development Corporation amount with the township amount, and anything with Blue Water Power and what would be considered unfunded, which is our debt itself. So overall, those details, and then the tangible capital asset, total invested in capital assets, which essentially is a surplus position as well, an equity. So that's 67, and then the totals above get us to the 55,802. And to that, we add the reserves set aside by council, and then those reserves for water and sewer. And you can see those comparative amounts from previous years. We had about 10.2 set aside by council here, up to 10.745. We add that to the surplus position with the equities, and then the reserves set aside for water and sewer to get us that 71,955. We add that remeasurement gain position based on the investments, and again, you can see a familiar number there, 72,525 overall. So a lot of good detail here, which is showing the equities, the reserves, and the reserve funds, and everything that's kind of building up the net equity position for the municipality. Other than that, a little bit more around laws and what we have to do for our standards to consolidate laws, our budget figure detail, and our classification by object you saw on the statement of operations. And the next piece, so the trust funds, we do have a separate set of statements on there with a continuity position. It does add up to the 238,007. Yes, another new piece here, note 24. So just kind of getting to the end here, but essentially our financial instrument risk and how we have to address that based on standard changes from last year as well. Effectively showing, fixed positions and fair value positions, and essentially dating out what, receivables and payables and that would be based on, management's estimations, but also within the guidelines of the standards that are in place now to assess this, both on the payables and receivable side. Next couple of schedules. These are a little small, but it's basically showing our cost and total accumulated amortization for the capital assets for 24 and 25. And the last two schedules showing our segmented disclosure. The detail here effectively is put into the financial information return, where that is recorded to the province, but effectively a similar breakdown here based on department and type. And so we get that detail there, as well as recording it here as part of the notes. So now let's go through a lot of the statements there in kind of a quick time frame. I don't know if there's any questions before I get to that. I talked about the FIR. Essentially, we're working on getting that submitted as soon as we can, and any other compliance that we would have looked at, part of HST and payroll and the discussions around that. There was no concerns that we had. So on the compliance side, things will be in good shape there. Okay, so I'll leave it for any questions at this point.
All right, well, thank you very much for going over the budget, or pardon me, going over the financials with us, Giovanni. I appreciate that. Anybody on council have any questions for Giovanni? Seeing no questions? I guess just the obvious question to you as our auditor, just to make it very clear, we are in a very good financial position at this time. Am I correct in saying that, Giovanni?
Yes, in terms of funding reserves and having those financial positions in terms of those back up here, but the net financial assets growing and contributing to what you'd say some progress in terms of like being able to fund capital assets and then future projects there, right? So when we do look at that total financial asset piece, that's where that's kind of assets that can be used, right? And then the non-financial assets, still some growth there, but that's overall your tangible capital assets. In terms of the audit itself and the work that we did with management in order to get the information we needed, we know there was kind of a transition there that we've been working through, both on management's and then and our end. What I can say for this year, because it is October, but we were working through our kind of full transition over to M&P's back end stuff. So, we did get through a lot of that. So we can, confidently say that we can work towards having these prepared in a more timely fashion going forward, meeting those expectations to make sure that, that FIR and statements are, more promptly completed as best we can with all the consolidation necessary, but in good shape that way as well going forward. And we're planning to do some good interim work. So again, it is late October. We're rolling right into that into November or early December. Talked to Trevor and the team there to kind of roll right into doing some interim work to help the process for the upcoming audit.
Once again, Giovanni, thank you very much for that. And that's the question I think that we ask you every year. It's great to have all the details when the complete audit is done. But it's also good to know that we financially are in fairly good shape, especially with these trying times we're living in and all the uncertainty within the financial markets in the world we live in. So thank you very much for that. I think at this time, we usually sign off on a letter to go back to you. Am I correct, Giovanni?
Yes. So we have a few items that I'll get right back to Trevor for signatures, and we'll probably just go with a physical signature. So if it can be today or around today, but things will be dated for today as it's been, I assume, approved by council for accepting these statements.
I appreciate that, but just to get the room involved in this, is everybody good with me signing off on the statements we received today? Very good. Thank you very much. So I have that direction and we will sign that letter. And if you want to send anything else you need through to Trevor, Trevor can make sure that it gets to us for the proper signature. So thank you very much, Giovanni. We appreciate it. Unless there's anybody else who has anything they'd like to ask him. Councilor Morse.
I just noticed one thing on the total receivables.
Mhm.
Our change from the long term, the 90 to 120 days went up 1.7 million. Am I reading this wrong somehow?
Is that in one of those notes there at the end?
Yeah, the very last one.
So
I can take it, Giovanni. It's a accounting transaction for the parcel of land that we've sold to.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
yeah, no problem.
All right. I don't want to cut anybody off. Anybody else see anything they'd like to ask? Well, we have Giovanni with us. Seeing none. All right. Well, thank you very much, Giovanni. We appreciate it. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Keep up the positive numbers. We want to see those keep coming. So we'll do our part. And we appreciate the fact that you're a little late this time with the changeover with M&P. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Having me.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, council, what we're going to do is we're going to go back or go ahead in our agenda. We're going to go back to 13D. That's where we left off. Seems like it was a while back. Anyways, that is the piece on the CIP. We had the presentation not that long ago. There's a recommendation that Warwick Township Council approve the updated CIP as presented to council by Jesse McPhail at our meeting on September 29, 2025. How does council wish to deal with that recommendation, 13D? Motion by Councillor Manning. Thank you, Councillor. Seconded by Councillor Morris. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're going to go to 13E. And this is the Library Foundation interior wall repairs. And there's a recommendation there. We just recently toured this particular building last week. So it's fresh in everybody's mind and we got to see the actual walls themselves. And there's a recommendation that Warwick Township Council receive the report as information and that Warwick Township Council refer the Watford Library Foundation interior wall repair RFT submissions to the 2026 capital budget, for deliberations. How does council wish to deal with that particular recommendation? Moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kallenberg. Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Perfect, thank you. And then we have a 13F. And this is staffing levels proposal. And the proposal is this, that Warwick Township Council receive a staffing increase proposal for as an information report. And that Warwick Township Council refer the staffing increase proposal information report to budget deliberations as well. So I should ask, Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to touch on this particular today, or we can wait to budget? It's up to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Case. Just a quick high-level update, but it is certainly something that we'll discuss further in more detail during the budget deliberation process. But just a brief report to provide some justification for the addition of 3 summer students, as well as a year-round part-time staff, and some casual staff within the Parks and Recreation Department to help support our ongoing operations. The staffing that we're proposing here will just add some much added flexibility to our staffing core, which should help sort of navigate our scheduling processes. We're quite busy. We're a high touch department for sure. And certainly a full-time year-round operation. Sort of what we've experienced the last 2 months here too. We're full mode arena operations, but also essentially full mode outdoors as well, with the weather that we've been having. So just some additional staffing, and again, that will provide us some flexibility.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ryan. Did anybody have any questions on the proposal that Ryan has put before us when it comes to Recreation Department? So again, there's a recommendation to refer it to the budget process for further discussion. How does council wish to deal with that? Councilor Morris?
I make a motion to refer it to budget.
Yes, sir. Seconded by Councilor Manning. Very good. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, any new business today that we need to deal with, council? Yes, Trevor.
I have 3 small things to bring to council's attention. Today, the delegation request for Roma came out for 2026. They're due by Tuesday, November 18th. So next council meeting, if we can put on a list of delegations we'd like to apply for, staff will work on that. The second one is I got to step in for Kyle today on the site meeting up on Sunset and Confed. The paving schedule is this Thursday and the sidewalks are next Tuesday. They want to have all the hard surfaces done and finished in time for Halloween. They expect to be out there probably within 3 weeks after that completely. The top coat will go on next year. They're working with bus lines to give their 48 hours notice. It should happen today. So that's where that sits. So everyone can see the end is near.
So can Fed be closed then, like it was before, Trevor?
I will have that answer probably tomorrow. Right now, we're looking at 2 options to keep it open, 1 lane. They're reaching out to Dufferin, who's the subcontractor for the paving, to see if that would work for Dufferin. If not, they will just close it within specific hours and hopefully pave while the buses are not running, so it's open.
All right, thank you. Councilor Westgate.
On that project, some of the laneways into the houses where the hill used to be there, they're awful steep. They lowered that road quite a bit up the hill, didn't they? Are we going to go partway up the people's laneways to take some of the steepness away?
So, yes, Spreed has surveyed the lots, the driveways affected. And depending on which one they're regrading it out to eliminate a hill. It was only lowered by a maximum of 8 inches. So I don't know if it's, I haven't been out there till I was gone today, but the deepest spot is 8 inches lower than previous, and that's only at the bottom of the bowl and not all the way along.
It's partway up the hill. I think they take the steepness out of the hill and they've lowered, I'm quite sure, more than 8 inches. Some of them laneways look to be down 16 inches to me. I think if you have a look at it, maybe talk with Spreet about it, just to make sure that, no, we let them in and out of their laneways. I think some of the laneways have to be lowered down up farther than just past our allowance.
Some driveways, the rework will extend onto their property. It won't just be within our road allowance, the regrading. But all driveways that were below 10% slope will remain below 10% slope. There was one that already exceeded it, so it will continue to exceed that maximum gradient. But I have a drawing of each driveway and what the new slope will look like. And they will, I'll reach out with Spreed to review it again, make sure we haven't missed the mark.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other new business today, council? Okay, so this ends the public portion of our meeting. Once again, I do apologize for the interruptions, the system today. I guess it's like I say, Amazon's not the only company out there that's having internet problems. We've had our share today as well. So anyways, I appreciate everybody's patience, and this concludes the public portion, and thank you very much for tuning in. I will ask for a motion to go in camera. So a motion to move into in-camera meeting of council pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 is amended for the following reasons. Number 2, 3, and 6 of the Municipal Act. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Manning, seconded by Deputy